Since 1961, Quartz Plumbing has offered friendly, reliable service to residences all over Bergen County, New Jersey. We are a fourth-generation family-owned business, unmatched in customer satisfaction and professionalism while working in your home. We are the hydronic heating and water filtration specialists with a workmanship guarantee to put you at ease so you can rest comfortably. We offer financing for those big projects that catch you off guard, and we have a network of excellent contractors in all fields for any project you wish to tackle. Call our responsive office team, and we'll dispatch a handsome and educated technician to lay the smackdown on all your plumbing issues. You can also find us at quartzplumbing.com, search us on Google, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Like, subscribe, and share, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of Plum Bums Podcast, the Blue Collar Tradesman Show, where we talk about small business and entrepreneurship, the Everyman's Podcast. I'm Phil, as with me as always is Max. How you doing today, Max?
And Mookie.
Mookie's
back.
Frankie's back, and Mookie's back.
Yeah, but Frankie's in
timeout.
solitary confinement because it smells like poop and axe in here.
Which is basically what Axe smells like.
Didn't you say axe is what Guidos smell like?
Smells like a Guido in here. So I got Frankie back from my parents. She did fine out there, and she comes out here, and now she's got just explosive diarrhea.
Didn't she diarrhea in the truck the other day?
Yes. Oh, my gosh.
That was vile.
I went out to do a job. I left her in the truck. I went out to do a quick proposal. I come back. There's poop everywhere.
I think you should turn your mic up a little bit more.
Yeah, you really can't hear me, huh?
I can, but I'm like, it sounds a little bit...
I don't want to max out or it'll get all... So I took her to the vet. $1,000 later.
They said she's dying.
Of medication.
You spent $1,000?
I spent $1,000.
The other day?
Blood work, lab results. Listen to this. You want to hear something disgusting? So they had to give her fluids because she was super dehydrated. She's looking at me. She knows I'm talking about her. They had to give her fluids. This is how they give dogs fluid. They inject a fluid pack underneath her skin, and it looks like a waterbed. It was disgusting. You touch it, and the whole thing ripples like a waterbed.
What do you mean underneath her skin?
They inject fluid between her skin and her muscular layer, and it just holds there like a mattress, like a waterbed mattress. Like her whole back was inflated.
Ew.
It was disgusting. She's like, yeah, don't worry about that. I'm like, oh. And you touch it, and it jiggles like a waterbed. It was weird. I've
Some
never
of the
seen that
stuff
before.
that my brother said that he's seen in the hospital is, it gets vile. It gets gross. I don't know how...
The human body is disgusting.
What it can do. I remember he told me, like, one time they were doing surgery for somebody who was overdosing. And they said so that the muscles don't expand and, like, pop or something. They have to cut open your skin so that your muscles will expand outside of your skin. And then eventually everything deflates.
The human body is
gross.
disgusting. It really is. It's amazing. You ever watch, you watch My 600-Pound Life?
Yeah.
It's amazing what the human body can handle.
Yeah.
I can't, like, I watched that show. I can't believe those people are still not walking around, but breathing.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
I don't know how it gets to that point, but I'm not one to say. I'll say this. I don't think it's, a lot of times I don't think it's their fault. I think it's the fault of the parents.
So I do watch that show to feel better about myself every once in a while.
Yeah, like Hoarders.
Yes, I watch Hoarders just like, on lunch and stuff. And it's like they have like these significant others who love them that size, and they just keep bringing them food.
Bringing them pizzas in the hospital where they're supposed to lose weight.
Yeah. And then they take the fall for it when the doctor finds the box.
The doctor on that show is great. He's hysterical. He gives
He's
zero
like-
craps.
I remember the one girl's like, well, I can't not eat. I got to eat something. He's like, no, you've eaten enough. You've eaten enough for the last 7 years. You're good.
You've eaten enough for
You'll be
6
fine."
lifetimes.
He holds no punches, this guy. And he's from Texas, too.
Well, he's foreign, so the accent makes it funnier.
It does make it funnier, but he still has that Texas attitude.
Yeah.
I got something to talk about. Contractors.
Oh, there we go.
Contractors. Home improvement contractors. Stop playing plumber. I was so angry today, dude.
I know.
We have 3 or 4 contractors on rotation that we use, and every once in a while they'll try to just get in and do a bathroom on their own, and they screw it up because they don't know the tricks of the trade. And then we have to get in there and we have to fix the whole thing, and then we get the call, come on, you got to hook me up, you got to help me out. And it's like, listen, why do I have to take a hit?
Yeah.
Why do I have to take a hit? This is my business, bro. This is my business. I didn't buy this house. I didn't contract this job. I have collected nothing from this bathroom, and you want a big-ass discount for me to go and fix your problem that you should have called me in the first place.
Well,
you know what we never do? No, give me a second. Okay. You know what we never do? Any contracting. I don't do anything without calling my contractor to have him do it. But they try to play plumber every time. You know who I'm talking to right now. Okay? Listen, you're a great guy, but stop it. Stop trying to do plumbing, dude. Let's give the example today.
You want to? All right.
He goes, you got to fix this tub. You got to fix this tub. It's moving and all this stuff. They ended up, it's a freestanding tub against the wall. They have a fancy tub spout and a handle and all that stuff. The guy plumbed everything incorrectly, so you can't move the handle properly. And the spray handle is set all the way to the right. So every time you switch from spray handle to tub, the last couple drips are behind the tub and they get underneath the tile. And the whole tub moves. He goes, I need you to get in there and just fix the tub. I'm like, bro, you have to redo this whole thing.
Yeah.
You have to rip out the wall. I need to rough it out. Then you have to put back the wall, and I got to reset the trim and the tub. Stop playing plumber. I know it's expensive, but factor it into the customer.
Yeah. Yeah. We know a lot of cases where plumbers, contractors will just get their plumber friends to stamp some permits.
No, just sign my permit.
Yeah.
I'm going to start jacking up the price to sign a permit to like $1,000. So you have to use me.
Some people are at that. Some people are at that price from what I've heard.
$1,000?
Yeah. Some people.
See, I'm too nice.
Yeah.
I don't sound nice, but I'm too nice.
No, I mean, listen, there is a certain, like, you have to have a certain relationship with your contractors too. Sometimes you do favors, and other times it's not a favor. It's a job.
We don't touch electrical. I don't try to do trim.
I know, but
I don't try to do baseboard.
Sometimes we call for electrical help on something, let's say
on a boiler.
On a boiler, to an electrician, or we ask a contractor for, I guess it's a favor. Yes, we don't touch it, but we ask for,
I'm sick of it.
Yeah.
I was pissed today.
I know.
I'm sick of it because the customer's
When are you
annoyed.
not?
She's annoyed that we're in there. She's annoyed at the contractor. And I know I'm going to get the call again from the guy in a couple months. Oh, I put this in. You got to hook me up, bro. Hook me up. Like, what is this? This is my business.
Yeah.
This is not a charity. We're not subsidized by the government. Where do you think the money comes from? Oh, you got to come on. I'll give you a good price. I'll give you the price what it is. How's that? The price is what it is. Listen, I'm at my wit's end trying to justify our business because we destroy our knees, we destroy our back, we're in your filth, we're in your filthy house that you have not improved in how long? I'm over it, dude. I'm tired of these people expect us to work till we're 90 years old and in the grave. It's not happening. Blue Collar Revolution. Folks, if you want to join the Blue Collar Revolution, go to quartzplumbing.com. Oh, here's a reminder. If you'd like to be on the show, we're always looking for interesting guests, interesting business owners, entrepreneurs, stuff like that. You're going to go to quartzplumbing.com. You're going to fill out the podcast link. You're going to scroll down and fill out the application to be a guest. We'll get you on. It's a lot of fun. We have a couple drinks. We loosen up when we talk about your business. It's basically one long commercial for you. You can't pass it up. So, yeah, get on the show. We're always looking for new guests. What else we got? Oh, new sponsor. You want to take this one?
No. You can take it.
I don't have my notes. I'm going to try to wing this.
New Jersey Plumbers Association.
New Jersey Master Plumbers Association. State League of Master Plumbers are sponsoring Quartz Plumbing, which is wonderful. I love that.
They've been great so far.
Yeah. We actually had Steve Hopper on the last episode. He's the one that got us in there. Excellent. I would suggest every plumber or tradesman find an association, become a member, because they lobby for us. Here's the problem with small government.
Make great relationships with those people.
Yes. They'll lobby with the government for you because, let's be honest, The only thing the government cares about is its donors, okay? Small businesses, they don't give a crap about. So you need voices in there. And State League of Master Plumbers is punching out lobbying and everything. They do events. They do a lot of scholarships and charity work. I'll put the information up about them. But join your local association is super important. And that's it. Give your voice to the government, because they don't care unless you're giving them thousands of dollars for their campaign. They don't give a crap about small business.
Yeah.
You know, all they're doing is collecting tax money. So, you want to go on a government raid?
No.
Rape?
Pay your taxes. Pay your taxes. All
That's
right?
not what
We're
I'm
not-
saying. I'm not saying don't pay your taxes.
Pay your taxes, but don't
lobby,
pay your
you know,
taxes.
you need a voice. We're getting drowned out. What are you sipping on there? Just water?
Scissorp. No, I'm just kidding. Sorry.
You are. I would never believe that. What else we got? What else is going
Wasn't
on?
that a whole thing with the
Scissor, codeine, and cough syrup?
It was cough syrup, right?
And codeine.
Oh. The reason why I brought that up is because somebody said for Frankie to give her codeine today. Wasn't the lady? She said something
Codeine
about
or the... No, it's a medication. It's like... It's not codeine.
Oh.
I was prescribed codeine for some like tooth thing. That stuff's insane.
What is it? Just like a form of morphine?
It was, I guess so. It's something like that. But like rappers mix it with like Jolly Ranchers and stuff, and like they sip on it and then they rap about it. The world's going to hell, folks. Listen, we have today a guest who was on one of our very first audio episodes a long time ago. We were way past audio. We're way past audio. We're done with audio. We've been doing video for a long time, but he was one of the first guests we had on. We have Jesse Cruz of Crucible Jiu Jitsu in Marshalls Creek, Pennsylvania. Jesse, how you doing today?
Good.
Yeah?
Good.
Feeling good?
Yeah.
So Jesse owns a really, really nice academy. Black belt in Jiu Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. It's not just Jiu Jitsu, right?
Depends who you ask.
Guatemalan Jiu Jitsu? Is that a thing?
So it's Brazilian, most popularly known as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Also formerly known as like Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. You might hear it called Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
There's a studio in Fairlawn, Gracie.
The
Gracie
Academy.
Studio,
That's,
right?
Well, that's my home academy.
That's your home
Yeah,
academy.
so it's called Performance. It's actually called Performance Jiu-Jitsu. But yeah, if you drive by Broadway, the sign says Gracie Jiu-Jitsu.
Well, they do Muay Thai, right?
No, he doesn't do Muay Thai there.
Oh?
No.
Oh.
No, you're talking about MK Muay Thai.
Oh, yeah.
Is
know
that
him.
close by?
It's right. It's also on Broadway. It's like right down where the old Blockbuster used to be. If anybody knows.
Yep, I remember. That was a blockbuster
That's
I
way
used to
back
go
in the
to.
day. And the movie theater was
Yeah.
right across the
Yep.
street. What's the movie theater called?
Now it's well,
Is it
I know
still
now
there?
it's a medical
No, it's
building.
a medical building now. I forget what kind of movie theater it was.
I don't
though.
remember.
But yeah, Performance. And actually, the guy who owns MK Muay Thai is a black belt in Jiu-Jitsu from Performance as well.
Yeah.
So the head instructor at Performance, a guy named Luis Vintaloro. I started Jiu-Jitsu with him when I was like 15 years old.
That's what I was going to ask. When did you start?
Yeah, it was like 2000. I always forget the exact day. I was young. I was 15. It's 2000, 2001, somewhere around that time frame. And it's funny. I was telling you, I found my academy in the yellow pages. You know, like it's
Yeah, back in
an
2001.
age ago.
Yeah.
All right, so it's like,
Wow.
but my mom, she brought me. We found some looking for jiu-jitsu in the yellow pages.
Why'd you start? Why?
Well, that's a funny story. So actually, my older brother, he's into kung fu movies. He's always been into kung fu movies because he grew up with like Saturday morning kung fu movies.
I
you know?
love Kung Fu.
And so he found a spot in New York City, a little hole in the wall spot on 42nd Street, and we would go down there on the weekends, and he'd find like movies straight from China.
Yeah.
These kung fu movies straight from China. The whole store was kung fu movies. They had a small section of like MMA and Vale Tudo fights, and some of them were like from Brazil and from Japan, like real obscure, like past UFC, you know, like beyond UFC, and. We started buying me some of those videos. We go back home. We watch these videos. I was young, 13, 14 at the time. At one point, they sold some Gracie Jiu-Jitsu like instructional videos. Bought those. We just fell in love. We fell in love with the sport. There was an organization called Pride back in the day. That was a big one in Japan. It was huge. It was like a rival to UFC.
I think I've heard that.
Yeah, you've heard. So
Yeah.
those are the events that we would get. We'd buy them. You know, it was funny because nowadays everything's on the internet. You
Yeah.
know, you can live stream something, or you know, what do you call it? Pirate it, you know, watch it live.
Wasn't Pride where they would be able to headbutt guys? Like it was barefisted.
That was
and
so
like
that
you
was
would be
like the
able to-
Brazil Vale-Tudos. That was another one that they would sell there.
Yeah.
These bare knuckle fights
Yeah.
from Brazil.
Like people were headbutting.
And there was
I remember seeing-
headbutts allowed. There was bare
Like no holds
knuckles.
barred.
Oh man, it was like brutal, you know.
Yeah.
Like, but it was like the youth of the sport. People don't even realize where this sport came from and how it started and like where it is now. You watch UFC on ESPN.
Right.
It's a completely cleaned up version.
Yeah.
Of like where this sport came from.
Yeah.
So anyway, I was watching these videos, falling in love with the sport. Then you see the Gracies. You start seeing these names. The Gracies are on all these tapes, and they're this legendary family. You know, they start learning about jiu-jitsu, and like I said, it wasn't the yellow pages this time. There's no like Google or anything, so I'm just very organic.
Yeah.
Found a local school. Thought I found a local school. My mom took me. It turned out to be like an Aikido jiu-jitsu. And
That's what Steven Seagal does, right?
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
the-
We walk in. I look at my mom. I'm like, Mom, this is not it. You know,
Yeah.
it's not it. And she's like, all right, let's go. Found another spot and it said Gracie Jiu-Jitsu. I said, Mom, that's it.
So to get that, I'm curious because to get that name on your logo on your store, whatever,
Yeah.
do you have to be certified or something? Do you have? Because that's obviously that's like a.
Sorry.
I would assume some sort of like a copyrighted or licensed name that you need to be.
Yeah, depends. Yeah, if it's like there are some legal things like that in the past. Like the family itself there's a long history of like the family itself even fighting over the name. You know.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so it's you know, there's a whole culture around it. The family's huge. The family's legendary. But to answer your question, Louis Vintaloro, he's actually a black belt under Royler Gracie. So Royler Gracie gave him his black belt. So his lineage is directly from the Gracies. And I don't know if that's why he's allowed to put it on his name or, you know, like, I don't know what the deal is with that.
I gotcha.
But yeah, so there is a direct connection there.
Yeah.
With the Gracie family.
But what I'm saying is because I've seen Gracie Jiu-Jitsu on several store names. Do you have to like go to like?
Well,
be a
some of them are
student his?
associations. Yeah, some of them are like, so like you probably seen a lot of Henzo Gracie, especially in this area.
Right.
Henzo Gracie, so when I first started, my instructor Lou was a brown belt at the time. There was another guy, David Adiv, in the area who also is part of his lineage, right? He's a Royler Gracie black belt. They both gave my instructor there his black belt without getting too much into the weeds about it. But the only other guy in the area was Henzo Gracie in New York City. And he started this small like basement academy in New York City, and some of the best fighters came out of there. So Matt Serra was a Henzo Gracie black belt, Ricardo Almeida back in the day. Now one of the best coaches in sport jiu-jitsu, a guy named John Danaher, is also a Henzo Gracie black belt. So Henzo kind of started in New York with one spot and has built an empire.
That's crazy.
All his black belts have gone on to open up their own academies, and they carry his name. You know, and there's associations in jiu-jitsu, right? Because sometimes it's hard for a new black belt without a name to open up his own place and have that kind of recognition.
Yeah.
So they will allow people, you know, you have like a subsidiary or just like a franchise basically.
Yeah.
And you get to borrow that name, you get to put it on your sign, and it's a big marketing tool.
That's a big, huge marketing
Yeah,
tool. It's got to
100%.
be.
Yeah, 100%.
I mean, to tag that in all your marketing and branding and stuff. I mean,
and he's all over the East Coast. I mean, he's everywhere at this point. But and so you have different areas are saturated with different associations. You know, the East Coast, because he was in New York, happens to be a very Henzo Gracie dominated area. You know, you go to the West Coast, it might be different. There's some other schools out there that have their affiliations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
so you started 14, 15,
Yep.
fighting in Fair Lawn. You kind of grew up there. Well, you grew up in the city, but you moved here.
Yeah, I was 9 years in New York City. When I was 9 years old, my family moved over the bridge to Fair Lawn.
15, started fighting, and then you have a military career.
Yeah, I was training for a little bit. I didn't get my blue. So the first belt after white belt, which is the first beginner belt, is blue belt, and I was just on the cusp of I had trained for 2 years, 2+ years, and I was just on the cusp of getting my blue belt. But at 18, I signed up, joined the Marine Corps, and so September of 2003 is when I went to boot camp.
Wow.
So that was 3 years after I started, 2-3 years after I started training. And I was 18 years old. I turned 18 September 7th. My recruit, I was supposed to leave the following year, but my recruiter, we were at the mall. I remember I was at the mall with my recruiter.
That's where you got
And he
recruited?
Well, no, this was after I had already been recruited. I was already scheduled to go. But we were walking around the mall, and he got a phone call. He looks at me. He's like, You want to leave next week? I said, I was like, oh, I got to tell my mom,
Yeah.
you know? It's like, but yeah, I do want to leave next week. And so, yeah, like, I ended up being like 2 weeks later. Like, a couple weeks later, I was off to boot camp, you know?
There you go.
And, yeah, I just wanted to get it out the way. I was ready to go. I was going
What
home.
branch?
Marine Corps.
Marine Corps?
Yeah.
Nice.
Did you fight in the Marine Corps? Did you train in the Marine Corps or not really? You had to. You're basically under their
I did.
thumb.
No, I did. I actually, so not for the first few years, because the first year obviously is boot camp.
Yeah.
Then you go to MCT, which is Marine. I was in a grunt. I was a radio tech. So we don't go to School of Infantry. We go to something called Marine Combat Training, which is like a smaller version. And so there's like, that's what, 6 months or so total with boot camp and that combined. Then you go to your MOS school, which is your military occupation. And that was a 6-month school for me. So it's about like after all it's all said and done, almost a year of just training, right?
Oh wow!
And you're very new, you're green, so you don't have a whole lot of time for
Right.
to go train, to go out of town. And then I went to my first unit. Actually, during that whole period, I had a kid, got married, very young, and so I had a kid. I just had a brand new kid, you know,
Yeah.
and I was also getting ready to deploy because in 2006 I deployed to Iraq. So it was just that
Oh,
was a very
wow.
busy time for me. Obviously, when I got back from Iraq late 2006, finally got a little settled down, and I found a spot. I found a school next to me. Started training jiu-jitsu again. So it was like 3-year hiatus, you know. And I have a lot of those in my career. So I have kind of like a different career than most. You know, they'll say like
A lot of breaks.
a lot of breaks. You know, like the average time from white belt to black belt for most guys, maybe 10 years, 8 to 10 years. I got my black belt after like 22 years of training, you know, because there's so much broken time.
Yeah.
Having to switch academies, you know, you start with a new instructor, they're not going to promote you
Right,
right away.
right.
Yeah.
Right. You got to kind of be,
Well, that,
You
you
get
have
to
5
start.
children.
You get to start, like you left as a blue belt,
right.
right?
Yeah. You keep your belt.
You keep your belt, whatever academy you
Right.
go to. Okay.
Yeah, but let's say you've been training for like a year under one professor, and then you have to leave. You know,
Yeah.
a lot in the military, especially, I was changing bases or whatever. So you start fresh with another guy. They haven't really seen you for a year
Yeah.
at blue belt, so they want to. And there's rules too, where you have to be like training with the guy for at least 6 months before they can even consider you for a promotion.
Okay.
And so it's just a lot of stuff like that. A few injuries.
It's kind of good that they do that, though. I mean,
100%,
It
100%.
keeps the sport legit.
Well, that's one of the things about jiu-jitsu is that it still maintains it's one of those few martial arts that are still why it's so popular these days, why it's growing.
It is growing.
because it has that level of reality to it, and you have to the skill that you gain in jiu-jitsu has to reflect in real combat. You know, so you're not just doing a bunch of like forms or movements that you just have to memorize and put a check in the box.
Breaking
and then
boards.
you get your next belt, breaking boards, and yeah, I think all the cliche things like that. But those not to degrade other martial arts, but there's an aspect where they got watered down.
Yeah.
you know.
Well, there's a reason why jujitsu is like the main martial art that is represented in, like you say, the UFC.
Right.
You don't see, like you said, like Aikido guys or Taekwondo
Yeah.
or any of
Yeah.
those guys in the UFC. You'll see wrestlers.
Wrestlers,
You know?
because wrestling is another sport. That's
Yeah.
it's the same aspect. Like
Yeah.
to train wrestling,
It's very
you have
difficult.
to wrestle.
Yeah.
You know, you're not doing forms. You're not doing anything that's theoretical. It's very practical.
Yeah.
You get out there and it's hard nosed and you're training hard every day.
Yep.
There's live sparring every day, and that same thing with jiu-jitsu. Same thing with Muay Thai. Same thing with boxing. You know, any sport that requires you to like actually engage in combat to train.
Yeah.
Is
I would say wrestling is probably the most important form of fighting that I've noticed to be successful in the UFC, because who is it, like Khabib and all these like Kazakhstani, like
Right.
that area, those guys are all wrestlers. Like they're not big strikers, but they're all wrestlers.
You're gonna send me down a rant. I don't know if
Yeah.
you're gonna send me down
I don't know.
a niche rant.
Go ahead.
But I have my students will know, because I always talk about this. Like, that's very true. It is very true that most of the champions you see these days are wrestlers. But what they don't tell you is that those wrestlers are most always also jiu-jitsu black
Yeah,
belts. And so the foundation is always going to be jiu-jitsu.
I gotcha.
Because back in the day when it was just if you just take a wrestler who's only ever wrestled and you
Yeah.
put him against a guy who knows jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu is going to win 9 out of 10. More than that. You know,
Yeah.
maybe like 19 out of 20.
Yeah.
And so the guy's bases are in wrestling, yes. And I also have my opinions on the rules. The rule set is very much not favored toward jiu-jitsu and its philosophy, because jiu-jitsu's philosophy. So jiu-jitsu literally translates into the gentle art, right? It's an art that's designed to control for a smaller guy to be able to use leverage, use technique to defend themselves, number one, against a bigger, stronger opponent. You know, so it's not aggressive by nature, you know, and so it requires time to apply. And so you shorten, you have like 5-minute rounds. Okay. When you have 5-minute rounds where after every round you start back up in a standing position, like a lot of people don't appreciate until you train how hard it is to get a fight to the ground. Number one. And when you get a fight to the ground, how hard it is to maneuver somebody to a finishing position within 5 minutes. That's a short amount of time.
Yeah.
You know, so you have this short window with which to apply your jiu-jitsu. And if not, then the guy gets stood back up. And then what happens is like the scoring is even tilted towards wrestlers. Like a takedown is weighted by a lot.
Yeah.
So if a wrestler takes you down and then survives a few minutes, he wins the round.
Yeah.
He does that again the next round, he wins that round.
Yeah.
And now you're down 2-3 and you have to pull something out of the hat. It's hard. It's hard
I will
for
say it definitely the wrestling aspect. Yes, it's very impressive, but it definitely makes fighting a little bit more boring. We like to see the
been
striking.
the knock. That's been the knock on wrestlers,
Yeah.
right? Is like some of the champions are just, that's how they win their
Yeah.
titles.
Right,
and they're just
right,
so
right.
dominating, controlling
Yep.
the position. But yeah, so I think if you still had fights where it's like no time limit and you put a jiu-jitsu guy against a wrestler, I mean, you know,
Yeah.
that experiment's already been run in the early UFCs, which is why all the wrestlers have to go learn jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
you know? So you name any wrestler who's like holds a world title in the UFC, I'm pretty much going to guarantee you they're like a brown belt or above in jiu-jitsu as well. So it's like people kind of forget that, you know, leave that out the equation.
Yeah.
But
Wow.
of course I'm biased. You know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Well, it's 22 years you've been doing it?
Well, yeah, 24 now.
24 years?
24, almost 20, going on 25.
That's a generation right there.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. That's longer than, that's like, and I got my black belt for 22 years, so it's kind of unique, you know?
Well, you jumped out of the military. What? You didn't go right into teaching, did you?
No, I taught in the Marine Corps actually. So I had like I was actually part of the Marine Corps Fight Club, which was an awesome experience. It was like I mean, I lived the
That
dream.
sounds
I lived the
pretty
dream
badass.
for like a good year. I was living in San Diego. My job in the Marine Corps was literally to train jiu-jitsu and go to compete tournaments.
Oh, wow.
So they have like varsity teams. Like you probably heard of like most services have like a varsity football team or varsity wrestling team. So we had a varsity grappling team, and they literally would send me, and that would be my job. All I had to do all day was train. And so we had a team, and we'd go. I mean, it was amazing. I would train in the morning with one of my buddies, maybe go lift. We had a training session as a team, like at noon every day. So I'd drive, go to our training session. I'd come back. I'd hang out by the pool.
Yeah,
for
the
a
Marine
few
Corps doesn't
hours,
sound so
dude,
bad.
Drink a few
What are you
beers.
guys doing over there, huh?
And then I go to my own academy at night. I trained at a place in San Diego called Pitbull Jiu-Jitsu with a professor named Joao Cunha.
Your tax dollars at work, folks.
Yeah, I mean, well, listen, well, you know,
I'm kidding.
no, of
You
course,
did go to
of course.
Iraq.
But hey, listen, I was living the dream. But it's a PR thing, right? It's public relations.
Right.
That gets young men excited.
Yeah.
And it's not like I hadn't already deployed. You know, I deployed to Iraq, came back, and it's like, okay, you get a chance
Yeah,
to
then
go
you-
be on this team
right. Yeah.
and represent the Marine Corps. So they send us out to local competitions, and they pay for our way to enter these competitions. And all I did for a year was train, and we compete almost every weekend, every other weekend, sometimes twice a weekend. We had pancration tournaments against the other services, fought like the Navy and the Army. It was cool. It's just
sounds
like
really
an
cool.
awesome experience.
Yeah.
So after that, I got transferred up to Miramar, and I was working again. I was back in the Marine Corps, but in the Marine Corps, you get 2-hour lunches. And that's to encourage guys to go work out. So guys will go
okay.
eat a little bit, and then they'll go to the gym. And at least if you're not like a shit bag, you know.
Right.
And so we took advantage of that, and we made training sessions. We started a little club, like a Miramar Fight Club, and we had a couple guys who would coach. I at one point I became pretty much the head coach for the team. And it was cool because we had guys that were amateur MMA fighters. We had one guy win the title, the 145-pound title for an amateur MMA organization. And this was in San Diego. And you have to understand, San Diego kind of became almost like the new Mecca of
Yeah.
jiu-jitsu, because
A lot of guys fight out of
a lot of Brazilians moved to San Diego, right?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so Rio de Janeiro was always like the mecca of jiu-jitsu. That's where all the major tournaments were held.
Oh, wow.
Right, and then eventually the money started moving to America. And all the Brazilians were like, oh, I can go to America and teach the sport and make a living.
Yeah.
And where would they go?
San
That was
Diego.
close to Rio de Janeiro. That had
Yeah,
good
yeah.
surf, that had sun,
Yeah,
that had
gotcha.
palm trees, and everybody went to San Diego, Southern California in general.
Yeah.
And so what happened was then the major competitions like the Jiu-Jitsu World Championships, which were always held in Rio de Janeiro, actually started holding their championships in like Anaheim, or like it was Long Beach University, the University of Long Beach, California. They had a big pyramid. It was a big deal, you know. But you move something like that to Southern
America,
California,
where we make it better.
now even more Brazilians come, you know. Now they're like, okay, if I want to go compete and win, I have to live in Southern California. So it just became like the mecca. It was around that time frame. I was training in San Diego from 2006. I left, came back to the East Coast in 2016. So yeah, I would live there 2004, but I wasn't training until 2006. So for that decade, man, jiu-jitsu in San Diego just blew up. And the MMA scene, the amateur MMA scene was crazy.
Yeah.
So to have a guy win a title was, it's not like a small town USA.
Yeah.
Right?
You know, I'm going to completely get off topic, but it's funny because all those bands, we were hanging out this weekend, and all those bands that came from California came out to the East Coast so quick.
Yeah.
I remember we were kind of reminiscing about that time, about like the music scene, and it was like the same stuff.
Yeah, I listened to, so I lived in Ocean Beach, California for a while, which is kind of like the Venice Beach of San Diego, if I could describe it, right? You have Pacific Beach, which is like your college town. Pacific, did I say Pacific Beach? That's what I just said.
Yeah.
Mission Beach, which is like more of like a touristy kind of thing. Then you have Ocean Beach, which is like
Trash. It's trash.
Just no, I wouldn't say trash. It's more like they had a town ordinance where there's like no chains were allowed to open up there, so it's all like small business and like locals.
Oh wow!
And, it's very like a local kind of mentality, and it was very hippie. It was like very hip. You go down the street and guys hand you joints, and it's just like that kind of Cali. But that was where Slightly Stupid is from. Slightly Stupid is from Ocean Beach. And, if you listen to their music, and if you've been to Ocean Beach, I lived there. I lived in Ocean Beach for a while. And it just like completely makes sense, So it's like the whole vibe of the area,
that vibe. Yeah.
And so, you listen to that music and it like puts you back there. And it's like, it's so special. Me and my wife were both reminiscing about how much San Diego's like has a real soft spot in our heart,
Would you ever go back?
Would I ever go back? Oh yeah, she was like saying this week, like, you mean to live?
Yeah.
We've talked about like retiring there.
Yeah.
That would be amazing. But now I have this academy, and
you have the academy, Crucible Jiu Jitsu. Where'd the name come from?
From the Marine Corps.
From the Marine Corps.
Yeah. So in the year, I think 99 or something like that, the Marine Corps added a training cycle to their boot camp called the Crucible. And it was like the culminating event of boot camp, right? And when there's like, it's I forget the stats right, but I want to say like 54-hour training cycle, and over that 54 hours you hike something like 38 miles, and you have to complete a bunch of like team building events with you get like 4 hours of sleep over these 2 days. Oof. A couple MREs. It's tough, but for a new recruit, or somebody who's not a new recruit, but who's about to complete boot camp, for a young man, it's a culminating event almost in their life. Yeah. And so the word Crucible actually means
it's on your t-shirt.
It's on my t-shirt.
A situation.
I know this. I should know this by heart. Situation of severe trial in which different elements interact, leading to the creation of something new. So the idea is that you go through this crucible, and actually the way that it's beautiful, right? You go, at least in San Diego, the last event is this hike. It's the hill is very challenging, and man, I'm gonna mess up the name of the hill. Either way, when you get to the top, to the crest of this hill, there's a ceremony held. Everybody gets into formation. This is after like 54 hours, all these miles, right? Mm-hmm. And the drill instructors line up, and every recruit gets their Eagle Globe and Anchor. and that signifies now they're not recruits anymore, they're Marines.
Yeah.
So you've gone through the crucible, you've come out the other end, transformed into something new, to a United States Marine.
It's a moving experience.
And then following that is the last week of boot camp, and that last week is just preparation for graduation. And the drill instructors call them Marines. You know, you can't call them a recruit anymore. They actually wear their rank. If some of them have earned their rank, they can wear their private, chevrons and stuff like that. So when I was actually after I got out of the Marine Corps, shortly after I got out, one of my good friends who I trained jiu-jitsu with, we trained fighters. He's one of the guys I helped train fighters with. Okay. And we had talked about opening, we're going to open up our own academy. We're going to train fighters, what are we going to call it? It's like, we call it Crucible MMA. We call it Crucible Jiu Jitsu. Like, oh man, that's awesome, but it never happened. And then fast forward like 10 years later, I call him, he's in Texas now. I'm like, hey Brian, bro, I'm going to open up my academy. He's like, oh yeah, what are you going to call it? I'm like, Crucible Jiu Jitsu, bro.
What'd he say?
He loved it. He loved it, yeah.
So
he actually owns his own academy now too, and his situation was different. He was training at a place and they needed new ownership, and he was in a position,
I got you.
and they asked him to take it over. Yeah, and it's good. He's in one of those associations, one of those bigger jiu-jitsu. It's called Gracie Humaita. It's a Gracie Humaita in Huntsville, Texas. Actually, his name's Ryan Reed, and Gracie Humaita is a big organization throughout in Brazil, everywhere. So it's like one of those biggest, kind of like Renzo Gracie,
Yeah.
We kind of gear this show toward kids coming out of college to try to get them into the trades and stuff.
Nice.
But give them a taste of like joining the military, boot camp, stuff like that. What should they be prepping for?
I mean, would
What
you
should they be
recommend it?
looking for?
You have kids now. Would you recommend it even to your own kids?
I mean, yes, I would. Yes and no. Obviously I'm a dad now, so I get the other side of it.
You can also get a little political if you need to.
Yeah, and definitely political.
Yeah.
I would say now, especially now that we're signaling that we're pulling away from like our military interventionism, and I mean there's still some hot spots in the world that you never know if can pop off, but generally speaking, we're kind of moving away from that war hawk mentality. Yeah, and that would make me feel a little bit better. Yeah. That if we did get into something, hopefully at least it's absolutely necessary, right? And because you carry a lot of weight from that. You get out of the Marine Corps, and then you get woke. You understand what's going on. Woke. We talked about this weekend. Didn't we talk about this weekend?
Did we? I don't remember.
Like the original term, or maybe I was talking about it to our other buddy.
Yeah, I don't know.
He was talking about like KRS-One. We listened to old hip hop, and like back in the day, what being woke meant like you understood what the government was actually up to. Yeah. Now of course it's transformed into something else. Right. But my point being, you open up your eyes after the military, and you kind of start to realize what you are participating in, and it can be
no offense, but it's you're like a pawn.
100%.
You're
100%,
like you're indispensable.
Well, I mean, listen, even okay. So there's a long history of this, right? So there's an old Marine Corps general, and he's part of like the knowledge and stuff that we're taught in boot camp. He's on the Mount Rushmore of Marines, right? Yeah. I think he won as a 2-time Medal of Honor winner, General Smedley Butler. And even to this day, you go on YouTube, he wrote a famous essay after he got out of the Marine Corps. He was a general, 2-time, and his you probably heard of it, War is a Racket. Have you heard of General Smedley Butler, War is a Racket? Well, I'll send it to you after you check it out. You guys can check it out. Yeah. And this was after World War I. And he wrote a famous essay about and just outlining all the reasons that he was really in all these countries. He went to Haiti to represent the banana interests and all these things. He named the companies, that he was out there fighting for. Yeah. And so this, I mean, it's nothing new, Yeah. You're in it, you're a young man, and there's a lot to be gained from it, discipline wise, and there's no experience like it. The camaraderie, the boot camp, the training you go through, what it does. It's a crucible, right? You do come out a completely different person. You go home to your parents, they don't recognize you, right? You're calling them ma'am, you're calling them sir, you're standing up straight. You're physically fit. You're just a completely different mindset from maybe what you went to. So that part is 100% worth it. Yeah. But it's just like, it's a roll of the dice, right?
You're rolling the dice.
You could end up in the South China Sea or Taiwan or,
Or San Diego.
And that's just reality. Or in Iraq, you know?
Or in Iraq, yeah.
Or that, and it's just a real experience, man,
Yeah.
you know? And luckily, I was lucky enough. Like I said, I wasn't an infantryman. I wasn't a grunt. So
Did you see combat?
No, I don't have a combat action ribbon, right? If you've seen combat, you get rewarded a combat action ribbon. I don't have a combat action ribbon. I was close enough to combat to, you know, like where I saw the shrapnel of it. Let's say, you know, like, you know, there was a couple instances where, you know, you're close to it.
Yeah.
But, you know, thank God I wasn't. You know, and
You wouldn't change it.
no, I wouldn't. No, listen, you know, and you ask guys who have been and have seen combat, they'll tell you the same thing. You know, like you know, a young person would say, "Oh, is you cool? You what happened? What was it like?" You know, like you don't ever. A person who's really seen combat
Doesn't talk about it.
or doesn't, and they'll just say, like, listen, it's not glorious. You know,
They don't talk.
they wouldn't
about
wish
it
they wouldn't
highly.
wish it upon anyone. You know, they're proud of their service. You know, and they're heroes in their own right. But they wouldn't wish it upon anyone.
War is hell.
War is hell, 100%. Yeah.
War is hell. I mean, you got a lot of impatient people in this country. They're like, just get it done with. We're entering World War III. But like, you're right. Guys who have seen that
until their sons,
until their sons are
and daughters, on the way
deployed.
over there, then it's, you know, a different story.
We got drones now. Just send the drones.
That is true. I mean, do we even need an infantry anymore?
Have you seen? But
You do.
what the drones are doing though? The drones are attacking them. You know,
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys are following
I've
the
seen the
Russia-Ukraine war.
Russia-Ukraine war. I've seen the.
I'm still a military. You know, and this is why one of the reasons I joined the Marine Corps. Even as a kid, I was a military kid. I had GI Joes. I went to the Intrepid Museum in New York.
Yeah.
I was all gung ho. You know, which is why I left at 18. And and so I still have that. I'm like a history buff. I love, you know, and I've been following the Russia-Ukraine war, and you just see like these Telegram channels with the videos. And, the drone warfare is scary.
crazy now.
It is. I know what videos you're talking
I couldn't
about.
imagine being an infantryman, and you see these videos, and these guys are like begging the drones, like not, you know, it's a different battlefield.
You know what
out
I
there.
think it does? It takes away. I'm sure there's a certain emotion to war. Obviously, there's an emotional toll, and with the introduction of technology like that, it takes the emotional aspect of away from it. Like, again, I don't know what it's like to kill a man, but I'm sure it does something to a person. Obviously,
like you're playing a video game.
But
you know?
now
like,
you're playing
just
a video game.
Yeah.
And like that
And
guy.
Call of Duty
that's
already
begging,
looks like that.
Yeah.
All right.
So there's
There's a lot to be said about that kind of like social programming too, right?
Yeah.
You know, have these kids who just it's a very easy transition.
Like it's
you know?
probably this sounds harsh, but easier to take a drone and take
100%,
somebody's life
yeah.
than it is to be up close and shoot somebody.
And it's a lot easier to control than it is, like, let's say, flying a jet.
Right.
Because, you know, flying a jet is probably another way you can say that you're detached from the killing, you know. But not everybody can be a jet pilot.
Right.
Now you just get 5 drone operators in a room.
And a
they're
PlayStation controller.
I mean, if you see, there's actually a documentary I watched, and they went inside one of these Russian bunkers where it was just a drone operating bunker, you know, and it showed like a day in the life of a drone operator. Just all the missions they would run. They just set the drones up outside, go back inside their little bunker, and just on their screens.
It makes you wonder where you think warfare is going to be taken to.
Yeah.
I mean,
Like-
just double that down.
All right.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy.
Well, that's why it's kind of become into a stalemate too, right? It's like the infantry can't really move out in the field. The warfare is just
Well, that too, and then not even drone operators. You're just going to have AI.
that too.
Yeah.
That is
Well,
terrifying.
look,
AI
just in New
drones,
Jersey over here, everybody was freaking out when the drones were hovering over the port.
I'll tell you what, they're still in the sky.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I see it. I in the Pocono. I live in the Poconos over there, and you still see them in the sky.
Yeah.
But
How's jiu-jitsu going to help?
that's a good question. I mean, but like in a very serious way, I always say that jiu-jitsu, you know, it's kind of like a meme in jiu-jitsu, like jiu-jitsu will save the world. The jiu-jitsu versus the world. Jiu-jitsu saves lives. You know, there's a lot of different things, a lot of aspects of society.
Mark
that-
Zuckerberg upside down.
100%. That's like a good example, you know? Mark Zuckerberg's a good example. But, you know, even a big one is like policing in the country.
Yeah.
That is probably like the lowest hanging fruit.
Yeah.
Like if every policeman in the country trained jiu-jitsu, it would solve that whole dynamic.
Yeah.
I may not solve it, but it would definitely.
Because there's a de-escalating aspect to being
100%.
when you're able, when you know in the back of your mind you're able to like choke somebody out within a handful of seconds. you know that you can de-escalate a situation a lot easier than somebody who's afraid.
Right. Or
of where a situation might
let's use like a real world example, you know, not to, but like, you know, the whole BLM riots and the Derek Chauvin case, you know, for me as a black belt, like watching that when that first happened, I'm just thinking like, man, what a tragedy that he didn't know any other way to control this guy. Like it's not that hard to control a man, like, especially if you're trained, you do it every single day. You do it every single day, and it's like everything else on the case aside, right? Like if he just knew how to control him, that whole tragedy, like everything that happened to the country could have been avoided. You know, and like that's a good example. Like if that department had just paid for some training or supplemented their officers' training, you know, this is why they need more money, right? To hire more officers, one, so that they have more time to actually train. Everybody knows an officer friend, right? And they just work ridiculous hours, and it's like, how are they on that schedule? Like, well, we don't have enough officers, you know. Like,
I have a hard time reading those articles because I'll admit it, I get really pissed at the police force because you read.
I mean, 100%.
Something just happened in New Jersey. This woman, it's 7:30 in the morning. This woman's wearing a business suit to go to work, and she had a stroke behind the wheel, and the cop thought she was drunk, and the woman was trying to communicate that she's having a stroke. The cop thinks she's drunk. She arrests her, throws her in a jail cell. Too much time passed. Now the woman's permanently damaged. She can't talk. She can't speak. She can't communicate.
Well, they also have liability. Like, I got into a car accident, and it was like all the doors got locked, all the airbags got deployed, and the cop's not legally allowed to take you out of the car.
No, the cop dragged this woman out.
But you know, this goes back to, like, you know, they're overworked. These guys are stressed. They have no time for training or to take care of their own health.
Overworked and undertrained for sure.
There's also a female cop, so
overworked and undertrained for sure. But they also deal with some
38
crazy
minutes, edit out.
They deal with some crazy stuff that, like, again, if you see those videos online, like, I've seen some of them shoot somebody like 8 or 9 times, and they don't go down on
crazy.
drugs.
Well, because,
you know?
That's always an aspect. You have like those cases that are those standout cases, you know, where
those are standout.
But there's a lot of cases, you know, where even if they were thinking clearer. Because I've worked as a bouncer too for a time, right? And I can tell you from experience, like, if you know what you're doing, if you're confident in yourself, and let's say if you just trained this afternoon with some 250-pound guy who wasn't able to do anything to you, and you get into a situation in the street, you just have a better decision-making capacity because you're not overfull of that fight or flight, that adrenaline rush that clouds your thinking, where you're in like a fog of war, right? So it's just like training in the military. You train and you train and you train to clear the fog of war.
Did you ever watch those Boss Rutan bouncer videos?
Those are hilarious. Those are classic.
I love those videos.
Boom! He's like,
dang.
he's picking up chairs.
He says, "Oh, you see this over here?" And he takes the guy's head, and it's like the corner of a desk, and he just goes, "We're gonna use this now."
No, it's classic, dude. That's a good one.
We had a Port Authority cop on here. I had to remove his episode because he got in trouble with the.
Oh no.
Yeah, he's going to retire in like a year, so he said, as soon as I retire, you can put it back up. But he trains jiu-jitsu, loves it.
Yeah, they usually do.
The guy has an even temperament. He's got his buddies started to training. He understands, like, he's a down-to-earth cop.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yes.
Because he knows that when he's entering in a situation, he knows that he could take anyone down. So he's going to he prefers to de-escalate.
He's also a big guy.
So you're touching on something that, like I said, now something that applies. I gave the police force as a good example of low-hanging fruit, but all those qualities that you're describing of that officer are the qualities that jiu-jitsu practice instills in anybody who trains, right? So you talk about kids school programs, doing jiu-jitsu in kids school programs. I mean, in the military, there is a lot of jiu-jitsu in the military. Like, the Army actually trains jiu-jitsu. Their combatives is designed from jiu-jitsu. The Gracies actually helped design Army combatives.
Really?
Not a lot of people know that. Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah. And there's a lot of jiu-jitsu and Marine Corps martial arts too. It's a little bit of a mix of everything, but there's a lot of jiu-jitsu techniques, and there's a lot of culture of training and stuff like that. So you just have to create a culture of training, and I think it's getting there. Like, jiu-jitsu is just on the cusp of, like, exploding in this country. You know, like my fastest growing class is my kids class, and not just like my young kids class. They say the kids pay the bills, right? And but I mean, parents, I think, see the inherent value, right?
Yeah.
They see things like you mentioned, like just creating an even keeled temperament,
Right.
Understanding how to handle conflict, understanding, and the jiu-jitsu is like so intimate, right? It's like, I mean, it just is. You're just on top, and you're sweating, and you're wrestling, and so there's a tactile like development. There's a what?
There's a homoerotic element to it.
Well,
I'm
that's
just
a whole
kidding.
nother jujitsu meme we can get into. The jujitsu is gay memes are like pernicious. They're all over. You can find it everywhere. It's
Listen,
like
we used to say it about the wrestlers, the wrestling team all the time.
You
but
say it
listen,
all you want.
they can kick your ass.
You can see,
They all
you can
kick
see
your ass.
they're usually like chiseled kind of characters, right? They're like tough people, but they're also like kind. You know, I mean, maybe
Yes.
some of them are jocks, you know, whatever in high school,
Yeah.
but that's normal.
Yeah.
They're young men, but you know,
They were
gives you
always the
quality.
calmest. They were always the calmest. Not always the calmest, but they all seem to have a certain aspect of respect
and
confidence.
confidence, because all that
Yeah.
respect comes from confidence.
Right.
Yeah.
When you're confident in your real abilities, you have nothing to prove. You have nothing to show to
Right.
anybody. And,
Yeah.
and other people who kind of show their ego, it's almost like you
Yeah,
can
it's all-
laugh it
yes,
off.
exactly.
You know, versus
Fake.
like getting defensive. When I bounced, you see this all the time, and you hate to work with those bouncers who are like that, who just escalate because of their ego. And it's like, man, I'm just trying to go home. Like, you know,
Yeah.
like.
without having a confidence.
That's
Yeah, we don't need to
frustrating.
fight tonight. Like, what do you? I got to go train tomorrow, dude.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
you know.
Let's do this. Let's take a quick break. Before we take a quick break, I want to give you guys a heads up. This show is also sponsored by Jigsaw PMR Property Maintenance Restoration. Jigsaw is your solution to your fire damage, water damage, sewer damage, mold damage. Great company. Give them a call. I'm going to throw the number right up on the screen. If you guys have any issues with flooding, broken pipes, mold, fire damage, anything, Jigsaw will come in and take care of you. He's got all the tricks of the trade. Great company, jigsawpmr.com. Jesse, we'll be right back. We'll come back. We'll be right back with Jesse from Crucible Jiu Jitsu. Stick with us.
Call Quartz Plumbing and Heating. Top-rated plumbers in North Jersey for over 60 years. And don't forget to keep treats for Frankie on hand. They'll help to subdue her carnal, animalistic nature.
Why Crucible Jiu Jitsu? Because here, it's more than a martial art. It's a mind-body transformation. At Crucible, we forge more than fighters. We forge confidence, discipline, and a supportive community that lasts beyond the mats. Veteran-owned and operated, we bring the values of honor, courage, and commitment into everything we do. Looking to empower yourself? Jiu-Jitsu is the most effective martial art for self-defense. Want to empower your kids? Our youth classes instill respect, teamwork, and unshakable self-belief. Whether you're looking to train jiu-jitsu, learn real-world self-defense, or improve your striking skills, we've got you covered. Located in the heart of the Poconos, we provide a welcoming, safe environment for anyone at any age to sharpen their mind, strengthen their body, and find their inner fire. Your journey begins with a single step. Join us for a free week of classes and discover how jiu-jitsu can transform your life. Forge your strength, transform your future. See you on the mats.
Jigsaw PMR Property Maintenance Restoration in Oradell, New Jersey. Ready to tackle the toughest disasters affecting your home or business. With state-of-the-art equipment and years of experience, our responsive staff will get you back home quicker than anyone else. Check us out at jigsawpmr.com and follow our cleanup journey on Instagram and Facebook. Give us a call at 201-425-4855. Jigsaw PMR, restoring peace of mind.
All right, folks, welcome back to Plum Bumps Podcast, the Blue Collar Tradesman Show, where we talk about small business and entrepreneurship, the Everyman's Podcast. We are here with Jesse Cruz of Crucible Jiu Jitsu of Marshall Creek, Pennsylvania. Marshall Creek, Pennsylvania.
Marshall Creek,
Nice, so right over the border.
Pennsylvania.
It's not even that far out of this area.
No. If 80 was working,
Oh, yeah. That
sheesh,
sinkhole.
man.
Straight up sinkhole just collapsed, right?
I mean, when did that happen? Wasn't that like 2 weeks ago?
That was 2 months ago. 80's been closed.
Oh, they're still working on a
completely
sinkhole.
closed.
I mean,
That you talked about
East
on your
side.
way back.
Yes.
They just have to pour dirt in there. Am I missing something?
I think it's a little bit more difficult than that, but yeah, that's the
I mean, that's the gist of it.
yeah,
no?
that's the gist
That
of
makes
it.
me nervous because where there's one sinkhole, there's got to be another one just chilling.
I'm sure like they have geologists out there and just seeing like trying to address.
Listen,
Randy Marsh.
there's been random sinkholes in like and Fairlawn. I've seen videos of
Really?
in somebody's front lawn. Kids were playing out in their front lawn.
Like
There's a
gas
video.
pockets. I like gas pockets. I don't even know how sinkholes form.
It's where the aquifers run through and they erode the dirt.
Right. Aquifer, yeah.
Yeah,
Makes sense.
and
Yeah.
they'll erode the dirt, bro. When we were growing up, we had like this planter in the front yard, and we lived there for 10 years at least. And one day, my dad looks out, and there's just a massive hole where my brother's just staring at it, staring over. And he goes, "Oh my god!"
Yeah.
The whole lawn collapsed. It was like a 10 by 10, like a 10-foot diameter circle, and they went down. It was a 40-foot drop
Sheesh.
and they couldn't even find the bottom of the water. And my
That's
brother
insane.
was like 8 years old
He wasn't out there when it happened.
when
right?
it happened.
Oh,
Out there when it happened, and the whole thing just collapsed. So they had to backfill and backfill and backfill, and you fill it in, but that aquifer is still there.
Yeah.
Dude, the infrastructure is so rocky around here, man.
Yeah.
That's why our water sucks.
I mean, I'm surprised like that anything just stays
I know,
standing
yeah,
for like
I
hundreds
know.
of years. You know?
Dude, underneath New York City is all tunnels
Yeah,
and
exactly.
hollow.
That's what I'm saying.
It's all
Was
like,
it Seattle? Seattle is a city built on top of a city.
is it?
Yeah, Seattle's a city built on top of a city. If you go underground in Seattle, it was like there's an old city underneath there.
No way.
Yeah.
I mean, those things get buried. That's like most of those. That's why they do excavations, like in Mexico and stuff like that. And they find these like pyramids that are just have been buried.
Oh yeah,
you know.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
The lost city of Atlantis.
Gobekli Tepe. Have you gone down that wormhole?
No.
That's like that's like Graham Hancock stuff, right? Where they found like civilization that dates back to like 11,000
That's awesome.
years ago.
That's fascinating.
And like in the
Like,
Amazon.
no, it's in Turkey.
Oh.
So the conventional dating is like 5,000 BC, right? Mesopotamia.
Yeah.
And
Right.
They're finding archaeological sites that date back to like of a city, not just of like civilization.
Yeah.
And Gobekli Tepe, like I would say like 11,900 or something like that around that
Do you
time.
think the Earth's that old?
Huh?
Another podcast. We'll do that on another podcast. No, Jesse Cruz, Crucible Jiu Jitsu opened in August 22nd. You're a husband and wife tag team partner over there teaching, right?
Yeah. It's a tag her in today.
How's
to be
that?
here.
How's that going?
Good.
Yeah.
Good. She's busy. She works full time.
Yeah.
Obviously. So and my full time gig is the academy. So I do the bulk of the share, obviously, and she it's just been great because for things like this, I can just, hey, can you fill in? Can you teach class? Yeah, without that, it'd be much harder, right?
A partner in life, not having a partner in life is everything's harder.
Yeah, of course.
I'll tell you,
Not
just
not enough young people know that. They don't really understand.
oh, that is true. Let me give you an example. My old condo, okay, I dropped an egg, 2 eggs, like behind the cabinet, behind the stove, and I had to pull it out, and I had to clean it up, and I had to wedge myself behind the stove, pick up the egg, come out of the stove, and then find the garbage to get the pieces out. And this is so stupid, but if there was somebody else there, I would be able to take the egg, pass it to them.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
If you don't have a partner in life, tell the people.
Tell the people.
You don't have a partner in life.
Yeah, you're making it harder on yourself.
Yeah.
You know?
Not having a companion or someone to help you out.
Nobody to throw the eggs out.
I mean, it's our purpose, really. You know, I mean, we get real
You guys still tripping or
theological
something?
here.
Yeah,
you
go
know?
for it. I don't care.
But like marriage is sacred. You know, the union of man and woman in marriage, and the production of a family is as sacred as it gets,
Dude, it's the one institution that bridges the gender gap.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's super important. Now, do Americans or does the West really honor marriage? I wouldn't say so. They say divorce rate is up to 50%, but there are a lot of perpetual divorcees, which add to that stat.
Yeah.
But
I mean, I think you can still see it though, right? Like you talking about compared
Yes.
to like the golden age of the 1950s, and just like divorce wasn't, there's a downside to that always, right? You have like marriages that maybe weren't the healthiest, but at the same time,
divorce is not healthy.
No, that's true. I mean,
and I don't want to rip
right.
on that. You know what I mean? Like,
no, you're right. I was just trying to be generous, to the idea, but like, ultimately, it's the bedrock of any long-lasting society. And
yes, absolutely, the family unit.
And I think you see the ramifications of it already in our young generations, right? And the depression and the suicide rates, and even if there's not divorce there's not a respect for the institution and for the relationship between man and woman that provides like a healthy, it's just,
dude, that's why
everybody sees it. It's not rocket science here,
That's why cultural subverters will go right to that
100%,
and rip that
100%.
apart, rip apart the family unit.
Right. That was always the thing with the on the BLM website, right? They wanted to dismantle the nuclear family, and everybody's like, hold up.
Yeah.
I thought this was like Black Lives Matter, like dismantle the nuclear family. What does that mean? That's where their Marxist roots poke through.
Well, everyone knows it's been exposed now, whether you realize it or not. But like, whatever. Like we can go down a rabbit hole with that. But
like you talked about, like subversion. Like that is the first target. And it's deeper than any. We can put a political name on it, but we both know what the source of that truly is, right? Yeah. And it's evil, it's Satan, satanic to go after and to try to destroy a family, and because they know that's, like I said, it's one of the most sacred.
It's the bedrock of society,
100%,
the cornerstone of society.
Yeah, and the purpose of marriage ultimately is for the salvation of the soul of both individuals.
It's true.
Marriage is the bedrock of society, and divorce is the aquifer of society.
Is the sinkhole. Dude, my pastor said it. He said marriage, we are getting theological, but whatever. Marriage is not supposed to make you happy, which most people think
exactly.
will. It's supposed to make you holy.
Right.
And it's supposed to make you still depend on Christ.
100%.
So we talk about Christian themes on this all the time. That's fine.
Well, and then it's reflected in Scripture, right? When you have like the marriage of Christ and His church, that's a reflection of like, and we are a reflection of that kind of sacred union.
Yes.
And that's, like I said, that's the purpose, right? Like you said, actually, that's the purpose, to make us holy.
I mean,
to make us happy.
You got a great family out there. You got 5 kids, 4 who are just, I don't think I've ever met your oldest.
No. Hopefully soon.
But I know the 4 kids. You got.
They all look like Conan the Barbarian.
Yeah. You got little.
They got like
Conans.
perfect genes.
Yeah. My oldest is doing good, man. He's actually, this is his last semester in college. So I don't know if I mentioned this last time, but
oh wow.
He graduated high school with his associates, so he's only been in college for 2 years. He's about to get his bachelor's.
Really?
He's been like one of those straight A type students since he was like young.
Get out of here!
It was presidential like honor society awards, all that stuff.
Dude, that's awesome.
And he's 21, and he'll start for his master's program next year.
What does he want to do?
He's getting his bachelor's in video game design.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, he went on a semester internship in Japan. He spent a semester in Japan for his major.
He must have loved it.
Oh, he loved it. Of course.
There's bidet seats everywhere in Japan.
I heard a lot about the Japanese toilets. Right? It's pretty extravagant.
So in the studio here, I have a bidet seat that I got from my supplier. So everyone who comes, because the West is not bidet people, and America has to get on that board.
Europe is.
Europe is.
Europe has. I mean, because they have old plumbing, but they have the old bidets where you have to hop off the toilet and get
which is so weird.
But all over Europe, that's what they have. The downside is you have to pay to use the bathroom in Europe.
Huh.
Oh, you do?
Yeah. Public restrooms, you have to pay.
You got to get on that bidet game. That total washlet game is amazing.
My dad was the first thing my dad told me to install in the house when he came back from Japan. It was the cleanest place he's ever seen in his life. He was looking for. He said he went on the train, and like on the windowsills, how there's usually dust on the top of the windowsills or something. He said I ran my finger across all of the windows. People were looking at me strange. He said I ran my finger at nothing, not gum on the floor because they don't have garbage cans. So the mentality is that you're not going to throw your garbage in the garbage, and like let's say you miss it or something, you're going to be like, oh, you know, whatever, somebody will pick it up. You take your garbage home with you. So if you have garbage out in, you know, public.
Yeah, it's a fascinating culture, man.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And old culture. Old culture.
Yeah.
Husband and wife team over there, I think is great. I saw a video where you were able to belt your wife.
Yeah. She's a brown belt. So she got her brown belt last year. Gave her brown belt. I forget.
That was really
I
sweet.
forget what the date was, but
So it's adorbs. So let's talk about. I got a couple punch lists here, but let's talk about the general benefits. I know we've discussed a couple things.
Yeah, we kind of got started on it. We went a little bit of a tangent with the police and all that stuff. We talked about the kids, like in schools, but just for like the average person, right? You know, the biggest thing when people come to me, typically is like self-defense. Guys want to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
Women want to learn how to defend themselves. Then guys want to get in shape. You know, women want to get in shape. So that's probably the second most common thing that people come to me for. But, you know, they come to me for those things without sometimes even realizing all the intangible things that they're going to really find there. So they come to me for those things, then before you know it, they fall in love with it for a whole different set of reasons. You know, the camaraderie you find on the mats, especially in a good academy. You know, I have make a very conscious effort to make my academy a place that fosters that kind of community and camaraderie, right? So some places can kind of feel like a little bit of a factory, like, you know, you have a 1 hour class from 6 to 7, then another hour class from 7 to 8. There's like a different crew, and people kind of just come in, they train, they go change, another crew comes in.
Yeah.
My place is still pretty small, so we're not really like that, you know. We have usually one evening class. It's one crew of people that come in, and there's time before the class. People kind of chat, you know. Then after the class, there's always that after class chat, and that's always the best, right? Because you've just trained, you've got those endorphins,
Right.
You know, you're running high,
Yep.
you feel great. It's like after a workout, right? After a great workout. But I always tell people the gym is great for that stuff. You go to the gym, you feel great after a good workout. But now imagine doing that with like 20 other people. And it's like also that intimate part that I talked about, right?
Yeah,
You're like,
exactly.
You just finished wrestling, you're choking each other out, kind of going to like hard places too. You're doing very hard things. It's very intimidating. Most people get intimidated. It's like, oh, I have to fight this person. Like, you don't understand how much fun you're going to have, you know? And that usually hooks people. The first roll, you can see it in their faces. They're intimidated. Then they roll, and they're just like, their eyes are lit up, and like, what was that? You know? But they just got choked like 5 times in 2 minutes, and they're still like, what?
Fired up.
What? I was like, that's amazing. Like,
I heard Sean Strickland. I heard one of his interviews, and it was like his favorite thing was when he first started. He goes, "I got hit in the face, and I just like." I was so happy. Yeah. It was like the happiest I've ever been.
We're like a sheltered generation. We're blessed, right? We're blessed with like this
It's a blessing
society,
from God, yes, but
right. But we're also sheltered from that sort of like primal,
absolutely
competition.
Yeah.
You know, wrestling and boxing are ancient, right? It's like, especially for men. Dominance hierarchy, to engage in that kind of activity. You know, we're sedentary.
It's also
we're
humbling.
out of shape. We're fat. It's humbling. It's naturally humbling. Humbles you because you just. One of my favorite sayings. I've said this a bunch of times. My students have heard this, but jiu-jitsu teaches men that they aren't as strong as they think they are, and it teaches women that they're stronger than they think they are. And yeah, I can tell you from my experience that's absolutely true. Women come in there, they have no idea what they're capable of, right? Men think they're capable of much more.
I have no misunderstanding about how weak I am. So I don't.
Even
You're not weak. You're just out of shape.
Even with that misunderstanding, what I hear from most guys, and this is like a meme too, right? In jiu-jitsu, it's like, I know I don't train, I'm out of shape, but if I get angry, you know, if I see red though, like, you know, they have this misconception in their mind that, but you don't know how angry I get. It's like your anger gets you nowhere.
Nowhere.
Not just that. Like you mentioned before, the 5-minute rounds thing. You don't realize how long.
Oh my God, how long 5 minutes is?
5 minutes is when you're fighting somebody.
Right.
You're gonna get gas.
Yes.
Well,
Like
it's-
you see professional UFC fighters gassed after a
100%.
round.
You
like
have to train. You have to train. You don't rise.
The
So
endurance.
my other favorite sayings is you don't rise to the level of your expectations. You fall to the level of your training. You know, so people just have these expectations. Even after you've been out a while, maybe you think, oh, I still got it. And you train and you're like, man, I'm in such terrible shape. You know, I'm tired after a minute. I can't do half of the things I used
That's
to
me
do.
with soccer. Every time I go back, I'm
Right.
like, Jesus, I'm
So
a
the body
fat
gets
piece of
comfortable
shit.
real quick.
Oh yeah, oh yeah.
It gets
And
real comfortable.
I mean, yeah. So challenging yourself like that and doing those things that are hard, and it's mentally challenging. Like I said, it's intimidating, right? So it's physically challenging, one, but it's hard to get out there. You know, you have to drive yourself. I'm driving myself to go put on this uniform and go wrestle around. Like
Yeah.
people they're just comfortable where they are.
Right.
Why would I do that when I could just sit home and like?
It takes 30 days to form a habit.
Yeah.
Is what I find.
I have a question. Is your academy, because a lot of academies put out professional MMA fighters, are you
Yeah.
are you kind of aiming for that to maybe start putting out some people that are?
I wouldn't say it's like a goal of mine. It's not aiming.
No.
I think it's going to be a natural like side product. You know, I have one guy who already had an amateur fight. I'm a young academy, so I haven't had a long time to build like.
You're not trying to get in the All Valley tournament from Cobra Kai?
Yeah, exactly. That would be cool. But it's not. It's funny. I was on the way here. I was on the phone with my buddy I was talking about earlier, Ryan, and we talked about this exact thing. We were talking about competition. I had a recent competition that some of my students did. Kai did, my son, and just the mindset. We were talking about the mindset that we go in there with, and you go to these competitions and you see these guys and these kids who are just. It's all about competition. It's all about the medals, you know. And it's like, and what happens is they completely miss all those other aspects that I was
gotcha.
talking about of jiu-jitsu, because it becomes an ego feeding thing. When it's all about the competition, you don't dissolve the ego, you build the ego, right? Because like every loss is devastating to
Right,
you. Every
right.
win is like inflates your ego. And that doesn't happen to everybody. I love competition, and I think competition is great. It just has to be, it's a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
And it has to be approached with the right mindset, with the right goal in mind. So my goal is always to help my students improve. Right, you're here to get better. You're here to learn yourself. Don't forget why you came here. You know, you're not chasing medals to feed your ego, so you can be on Instagram and say, "I did this, I did that." Yeah. You're here to become a better jiu-jitsu fighter, a better person, to be healthier, to be happier, to be more balanced. All of those things, you know. And competition is a tool to do that, because it motivates you a lot. It does, you know, to train for a competition is different than just training for fun.
Right.
You know, it lights a fire under your ass, you know? And if you underperform at competition, it'll boost you. You go back the next week fired up. If you win, you go back the next week fired up, but you have to have the right mindset and the right goal. So I have the same attitude when I teach. You know, if my guys want to compete, I'll encourage that. I'll coach them. I'll give them the right mindset, but you have to keep your eye on the prize. And you know, fighting is not always going to be there. Medals are not always going to be there. At the end of the day, you want to make sure that you've got something that you can, you know, pass to your kids. You know, you want to be a better father, a better husband, a better friend. You know, and just be ashamed to train jiu-jitsu all that time and still be an asshole.
Right,
you know?
right. How did Kai do?
He did good. So he did 2 divisions. We have a no-gi division, and the gi is the uniform we wear. So a
Yeah.
kimono, most people might know it as a kimono. In like Portuguese or in Brazil, they called it a gi. It's a little thicker so that you can grab. It's kind of like a judo gi. And so you have gi divisions and no-gi divisions. His no-gi division, it was very rough. He went against some real tough wrestlers.
Oh, it was harder?
It was harder. Well, these kids were like these Russian kids. One of these academies was all Uzbekistani kids.
Yeah, Dagestan.
Yeah, and the other one is from New York. This New York Fight Club, and these kids are like, I think they're Russian, like wrestlers, and
They're like
just
30.
Yeah, right. No, they're little kids, but
It's a different world.
It's a different
totally
world.
different
They
world.
grow up with it in
And
them.
the academies are they're churning out these competitors, you know. So he ran into a real tough division,
Yeah.
and he did better in the gi. But he still has to learn. He has more competing to do. So I signed him up. He has another competition in 2 weeks. But competing is a skill too, man. You have guys who train in the academy, then they go out in competition, and they're not quite the same because there's a lot of emotion involved. It's scary, you know.
Yeah.
And so guys will freeze up. You have adrenaline dumps, and you get tired, and it's different. So you have to practice at it. You know, you have to compete often. Get rid of those nerves, flush those nerves out so you can start seeing clear.
Yeah.
And some people are very natural competitors, right? Like some people are like kind of the opposite. Like they're not so good in the gym, but they have a competition and it just lights them up, you know?
Yeah.
But that's rare.
All your kids train, right?
Yeah, all my kids train.
Even Lily? Even the little one?
Lillian. She's competing, so I signed her up for
No
competition.
way. Oh
Yeah.
my God, dude. I want to go with that.
That's April 27th, I think. Yeah.
I watched your older son Jackson. He was shadow boxing, just chilling and I'm like,
He's a beast, bro.
How old is he?
He's 12.
Yeah, I wouldn't mess with that kid.
I know.
He's
He's a gentle little. He's a gentle soul.
Yes,
you know?
he is. But when
Yeah.
he's just shadow boxing,
Yeah.
bro, you got to see these kids shadow box.
We train. You mentioned MK Muay Thai. The kids trained Muay Thai at MK Muay Thai with
Yeah.
Augie. And they trained jiu-jitsu at Performance with Lou, and then they trained Muay Thai at Augie. So they've been doing that since they were like 5. You know?
Dude, Kai put me in I was sitting there on my phone. He just walks up to me and puts me in a headlock. There was nothing I could do. He's 10 years old.
Yeah, I know. He's small. He's a small.
You just take
10-year-old
your
too.
lighter and light the fire.
You can do that. I didn't want to do that to his kid, though.
You got to watch him shadow. You see him shadow box?
No,
too?
he's almost shyer than
yeah,
Jackson.
he is. He's a little bit shy. They're both
you're-
shy, but
little Conan, man.
yeah.
I mean,
and Lily loves it. She's this little sweetheart, little
imagine she
princess,
does.
dude.
Yeah.
But she's been asking me to compete. She's been like begging me. She
Oh,
wanted me
really?
to compete at the last one. I was just like, oh.
She wants to fill up her Instagram. That's why.
She would make a dope Instagram page.
She'd make some money, that little girl. So let's go into some, like, you start the academy. And I remember when you started it.
Yeah.
You're like, I'm going to do
2.5
this.
years ago now.
I found a spot. I'm going to do it. First of all, obviously you have to have the revenue to get going and start buying rent. But how do you get how'd you get the name out there? How'd you get the name out there then, like with marketing and stuff like that? And what does your marketing and branding look like today?
Man, it's hard. Open up, especially martial arts academy. It's kind of like
A lot of competition.
And in your area is
Yeah.
not very populated for that, especially for that kind of stuff.
right. You go to a big city. I mean, I'm sure the people. It's just like
just pouring
fills up. It took a little work, man. I had to, the whole time it was in the works. I had friends, and I was telling, oh, you got to train. So I was focused on having a first class. I remember you showed up to my first class. I was just like, guys, can you guys please show up to my first class? So I have like a picture.
Yeah.
It's like put on my Instagram, like you took a video, the first commercial that we filmed.
Yeah.
And I just needed people there to look like somebody, And I think there's actually only, from that picture that we took, there's only one guy who still trains there.
Is it?
Yeah, his name is Matt. He's got his blue belt last year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So he's been going for 2 years. So you go white
2.5
to blue.
years. Yeah. About 2 years per belt, somewhere there. It's gotten faster because jiu-jitsu has developed and there's so much more information available. And
Okay.
guys are going on YouTube and they're getting all these techniques. There's it's just so much more ubiquitous that guys are developing faster and the sport is just moving faster. So what used to be 2 years for a guy to get to blue belt level has really shortened. People are doing blue belts in a year. I try to stay away from that. I still try to let guys mature into their belt. So usually around 18 months.
You want well-rounded students.
Yeah, well, I always tell them too. I said, you don't want to be the blue belt who guys are rolling with and man, you kind of feel like a white belt.
Yeah.
You'd rather be a white belt who guys are like, man, you kind of feel like a blue belt.
Yeah.
So you just want. I tell guys, I want you to mature. So the way jiu-jitsu development goes. So if you start training, it's slow progress, but you kind of learn and develop in peaks. You peak and then plateau, and then you have a big peak. Light bulbs click, and you 1 week you start doing really well, and so there'll be times where guys hit that peak where they kind of look like blue belts. I can watch them roll, and I say, he looks like a blue belt. But I know he's going to plateau.
I gotcha.
Let me let him sit at this level now and hit another little peak and kind of mature into that phase that he's in, so he can really be a consistent blue belt. One day he'll look like a blue belt, the next day he'll look like a white belt again.
Right.
You want him to be training at that level.
You want it consistently.
Right.
Going back to what we talked about in the first half, do you think that you said that after you take time off, it obviously you come back and it's a lot harder. But do you think that there's a certain muscle memory to like if you take this time off, because you said it took you 22 years.
Yeah.
You've taken long periods of time off, obviously.
Yeah.
Do you think there's a certain muscle memory where you come back and you like it might take you a few weeks, but you're like, I still have this.
Yeah, I mean, I have it down to like a schedule. I know if I come back from a little break, I know I just have to get through that first week, 2 weeks of like feeling like crap, you know, and then everything with my timing will start to come back, and I'll pick up where I left off. Okay. But you kind of have to like get through that, you know. It can be demoralizing a little bit.
Yeah.
But I've done it enough times where I know, like, okay, I know this first week I'm gonna suck.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm gonna be out of shape. Second week I'm gonna be sore. I'll be all right. Yeah.
Right.
You know, you get through it. I say those are the things that you just learn with experience. That stuff translates to life. You know, those are the kind of things that when you train in a discipline like this, you can take and apply to life, because it's easy to get demoralized in life too, right? You know, like, and I was just talking to my buddy about this too. You just learn to take jiu-jitsu, the success and the failures, they're just all experience. You know, it's all experience. And as long as you just keep going, as long as you keep training, one foot in front of the other, you know, keep going.
Just keep
Same
swimming.
thing with business, right? I mean, there's failures and there's successes, and to be a successful business person, you have to learn to move through both, just consistently.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Keep going.
And there's no magic to it, right? As I always tell my students, there's no magic.
How many people do you have enrolled now?
So I actually just hit a benchmark. I hit 100 members recently, and that was like a milestone of mine.
Wow.
I put in my business plan, even like my milestones I wanted to hit. 100 is a big milestone for me, because that's the number I told myself that I would like really start looking to expand the academy. So now I got to do it, right? I told myself I got to do it, so now I have to plan it. And
you have space next to that, next to yours,
and the space is open right next there. It's been open for a long time. So I just got to talk to the landlord and see if I get a deal done.
Well, what is your marketing and branding looking like now? I mean, you had to
Just
probably
mostly
punch out
social media. Early on, it was a lot of word of mouth. You know, I had like a referral program. So, like I said, before I opened up, I had a few guys that I said like, "Hey, when I open up, you're gonna come train with me, right?" I just kind of, and they committed to come train. And then it was like, okay, make sure you tell your friends. I had a referral program set up. You know, for one referral, you would get a free private lesson and stuff like, you know, whatever the program was, and trying to get people through the door. You know, then social media mostly.
Just word
out
social media.
Social media.
Social media's helped. Is it?
Oh yeah, social media's helped. I think word of mouth is bigger though.
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you create a good culture and
You can't
everybody
be
tells their
referrals.
friends, no, you can't be referrals. You know.
You
It's funny, in the age of technology where you need it most, everybody says the same thing.
Yeah.
Word
Every
of mouth
industry
wins.
we've had.
Every
Well, it
industry.
carries the most weight, right? When you know. You have relationships. Everybody has their circle of friends, and so there's that trust there. And if they come back and they say, "Hey, this place is a good place," you know, you see a spot online, you have to read the Google reviews. You don't know if they're bots. You don't know if you have to like do a little investigating. But if you speak to a friend who you trust, you know, and they say, "Hey, this spot is amazing."
Yeah.
You know, they have a great environment. The kids' class is great. He's good with the kids. It's going to carry weight. They're going to be like, you know, and there's that almost like peer pressure aspect. People was like, "Oh, I'm training. You got to come train with me, bro." You know, a lot of that.
You have hired somebody to do your videos and stuff, right?
Yeah, well, actually, one of my students. She works for a marketing company, and they do like social media videos, and
It's looking good.
yeah, she does a good job.
High quality stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
What are you using to film that stuff? Just your phone?
Just my phone.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, looks great.
Yeah, she does a good job.
This is on the phone.
This is on the phone
done
too.
just
Yeah,
on the
exactly.
phone.
Yeah. I mean, the phones these, all right, the
Yeah.
computers and the cameras these days. It's like,
Who needs a camera anymore?
I would like 2 cameras though. There's 2 cameras
Yeah.
I've had my eye on.
Yeah.
Because I would be able to zoom in. Like I would be able to like as editing, I can keep the cameras there, but I'd be able to zoom into your face and it's still crystal
right.
clear.
I mean, yeah. So it serves the purpose right now,
Yes.
right? If I ever got it's like a higher echelon or a bigger level of business, and I really wanted to produce some kind of marketing content that like blew things out of the water, I'm sure I can go with a professional camera. You know, I got like a gimbal, so I can take
Yeah.
You know, so I
that's
can
cool.
take the movement, the
Which,
videos.
dude, that is that increases the quality so much.
100%.
Even just like the movement,
Right.
It absolutely
I
does.
camera that doesn't
move around.
move.
I'll move around the mat. Well, it levels everything
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
So even as you're moving, it's smooth.
Yeah,
It smooths the video out.
It'll absorb shock. It won't bounce. You
Right,
know.
so you hold it with your hand, and you kind of look,
Yeah.
and the camera's moving. It looks very amateurish, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So
some of
I
those
mean, the little
gimbals-
things like that, little investments like that go a long way.
Yeah, we're getting
And
there.
just Instagram videos, a lot of stories. You know, I post a lot of stories. I always pay attention. I look at who's watching. You see like certain names who maybe aren't at the academy, but they're looking at every story.
Yeah.
Like, okay,
You got to go through reels. You got to post the reels and shorts on YouTube.
I know I got to get better at that.
Okay, I'm going to show you a program I use for it.
Okay.
It's called Buffer. All right. I'm going to shout out Buffer. Who cares? But I make everything that I want to post on social media, and I blast everything in one shot on all my social
nice.
media.
Yeah.
And you schedule it. So I'll just add to queue. I'll edit a video, add it to queue, and it'll throw it on YouTube, Instagram Shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Reels, and YouTube Shorts.
Nice.
And it'll in one shot. So I take 2 hours to blast that, and then it'll just portion it all week.
Yeah, and that's cool. That's that's like part of the learning process, right? As a business owner,
show it to you.
Like people throw little resources your way. You start using this. You start using that. Like, I've been in business 2.5 years, and hopefully, if I'm doing my job as a business owner, I'm learning.
Yeah.
By year 10, I have all these different things incorporated, right? And it's like you start to build systems. And
No one's taught me anything on that couch. We know we're good to go. We've only shared knowledge. We haven't absorbed any.
I'm not surprised.
Oh man, I mean, my goal is I would love. Well, first of all, we just hired a guy, so we have a part timer who's going to start full time in March, which is good. I want him to ease in, and he's very green. He just graduated school, but like I have my goals written down, and a 6-month goal is to get out of this shop.
Yeah.
I need a bigger spot. I'd love a actual studio where this can stay.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't have to move it when I have to work on stuff.
right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But dude, it's honestly,
Yeah, you're packed in here.
2024 was my worst year. Hands down. I say it on every episode. Worst year. And a lot of guys I've had on the past couple of weeks, they said, yeah, 2024 was terrible. There was something about that year. And we're actually starting way back further than I should be right now because of 2024. It set me back a lot. Yeah. I don't know what it was about that year. I don't know. Maybe Biden was just kind of sticking a whole bunch of things on his way out.
Man, I think it was just a weird feel in the air, right? I think even recently we kind of start to feel like maybe the country coming out of that, like everybody kind of says it, right? Like there's a different feel in the air, like things are a little more optimistic. Everybody's like,
We have been, listen, personally and business wise, I have been climbing out and like kind of being not so much struggling for air.
Yeah.
And it's noticeable.
Yeah.
But,
yeah, I'm early on. I'm still like starting to notice the ebbs and flows of the year and you know how the business does. Summertime is always a little bit of an ebb. You know, people are just not in the academy. Everybody's on vacation.
That's every industry.
It's every industry, I'm sure.
There's nothing you can do about it. Restaurant, plumbing.
Yeah.
August, we're dead. I'd love to just close down for August at some point. You know what I mean? But you have to learn those ebbs and flows, and you have to be able to compensate for the rest of the year and keep that in mind.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like there were jobs that I took last year that I knew I shouldn't have, but there was such a dry spell, and someone has a $14,000 check, and I'm just like,
I'm sure.
I gotta take it.
Yeah.
I mean, what am I gonna do? You know,
It's your job.
but I take it, and then we end up losing even more money. You know, so. And those are lessons that I should have known by now.
Yeah, it's a different business, you know. Like for me, it's more, you know, I don't have like contracts. I know some people do contracts, but it's never been my style. We do a month to month sort of deal. So when people can't train anymore, they want to freeze it. You know, I allow them to do that.
That's fair.
Yeah, and people will wait for the summer and say, "Hey, can you freeze my account?" So, and I'm starting to see, you know, the number will hit 100, maybe it'll go back down, and so my mindset is it's like a stock market, right? As long it's going to go up and down like this, as long as the trajectory is upward, though, you know. So I hit 100, by this time next year, when it flows again, I'd like to be, 150, and then maybe it'll go down to 130 in the summer, and then by the spring, jumps up to 160, and then maybe go down to 150, and then jumps up to 170, a little bit like that sort of pattern. That's my goal. I know there's going to be a ceiling eventually. The market in the areas is only so much,
space.
and the space. That's why I have to. My next move.
What's your goal to actually jump on that space? You think? And
I hit my goal, my 100 member mark. Yeah, but now
let's go.
Okay,
get Jimmy in there.
I know. Okay, so but now that you mentioned it that way, you put it that way. One of my goals is to do it in cash, to not have to go into credit card debt.
Okay.
To do it this time. So I need to save up a little money.
Is that why you're charging me to store steward out there now?
No, that's that's a separate story.
What's like a massive? What's like one of those ones in the city? What's a big academy hold? Like how many people?
Oh man, I don't know.
Like
I would actually like to know that number.
Like 1,000? Or you think they have like 1,000 members?
That's a lot.
I feel like it's a lot, but he's saying that they're pumping out.
I think
like,
the high end academies, from what I've heard, like 400 to 500.
Okay,
something like that.
Big.
That's
like
a lot.
100 is a good academy. 100 is a good number.
100 members, 100 paying members that are
100
coming
paying members
regular.
is a good number.
Yeah.
From what I've heard in the industry, like I've talked to other guys, and some guys can't break like 60, 70, people who have been open for years, much longer than I have. And so I'm happy with where I'm at. I think 150 to 200 is now you're talking like a very good academy.
Yeah.
I've heard that from some people who have been in the industry for very long.
You'd have to hire more teachers.
Yeah, oh yeah. I'm in the process of developing those guys, right? It takes time. It takes time.
I would think that's the best way to hire is in-house.
100%. Oh yeah, of course.
Your guys,
Yes.
who you taught.
And they're invested, they understand the culture. They understand how I teach. They understand what I emphasize. That's usually how it's done. Like I said, that's how like Renzo Gracie built an empire, right? All of his black belts and guys, they went eventually open up. First, they teach at his place. They cover his classes. Then eventually, some guys want to have ambition to open up their own spot, so they do that. But jiu-jitsu is just the nature of the sport. It's going to take time. That's my 10-year plan, though. Like after 10 years, I should be close to having some black belts under me.
Yeah.
Right. And so just over time, the level of the academy is going to rise. You have to imagine, you have to think back. My first day, it's just all brand new white belts.
Yeah.
My first few months, the whole mat is full with nothing but absolute beginners.
Yeah.
And you compare that to a place that's been around for 10 years. You walk into the door, you have the black belt instructor. Maybe you have like 4 or 5 brown belts. You have a bunch of purple belts and blue belts, and maybe then a bunch of beginners, Mm-hmm. This place was 100% beginners, So it's just
like a daycare.
Yeah, exactly.
A daycare with 30 and 40-year-olds.
Crucible daycare.
My students know, I mean, it's a little joke about white belts, they're kind of like kids.
Yeah.
I remember
we
my
were
first
all
class.
white belts once, though.
Yeah.
It's part of the learning process. It's part of like, this.
We all never did plumbing at some point.
What's the Carl Jung saying? He says, the fool is the precursor to the hero. So I say it jokingly, but that's part of the intimidating process, right? People don't want to be beginners at stuff. It's hard, especially as an adult. Right, you're a professional at this or that. Maybe you're a lawyer, this and that. Well, I got to go be a beginner and make an absolute fool of myself. Yeah. I don't even know how to move on the mat. You're telling me I got to do what? I got to roll backwards and do what? And so it's uncomfortable. It could be uncomfortable. And so it takes courage to step out there and just be in that. Put yourself in the position of being a fool.
Well, I think that's also important.
But that's absolutely necessary to eventually learn and become.
I think that's also important. The environment that you said. Obviously, you set a good environment for people to be comfortable. Like you said, especially as adults, like that's one of the things that's actually held me back from going to one of those things, because I've been an athlete my whole life, but trying that out, it seems like it's a lot of fun, and I feel like I'd be good at it, but I don't want that embarrassing.
Yeah, I'm gonna hit the bag and look awkward.
Exactly. Look like an idiot. I don't want to look like an idiot at 30 years old.
But everybody looks like an idiot going in there, and then after a year or so, when you don't look like it and feel like an idiot anymore, it's so gratifying.
Yeah.
And it's so empowering, and it's like
it's like me, like with him when I first started, I felt like you have a desire to learn, but you feel like an idiot when he asked you for a certain tool that you don't really know the name of, and you're like, okay. And now I see it with this kid, and because he was patient with me, I'm patient with
Right.
this kid. Like
Yes.
you understand that he doesn't know things, and you're
I was
like,
patient
okay,
with you.
you were in the
Relatively.
beginning. You were. Now you're not. In the beginning, you were. Now you're not. But
You know what I respect about the culture you're building out there? You mix a lot of wisdom and knowledge, and you have a little library in there with
Yeah.
the physical
Yeah.
building.
Yeah.
What's that quote you have up there?
It's the Thucydides quote. It's that the society that separates its scholars from its warriors will have its thinking done by cowards and its fighting done by fools.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
huge.
I love that quote forever. And I was like,
Yeah.
as soon as I open a cat, I'm gonna have it in the library. And the library, of course, is like some Jocko Willink books.
Yeah.
You know, I have the technique books on there. I have some jiu-jitsu oriented stuff. Hicks and Gracie's books are up there.
Which version of the Bible you got up there?
That's a good question. I don't know.
Pretty sure it's King James.
Probably a New King James,
Yeah.
maybe. Yeah.
No,
I think
that's-
one of my other students, he actually does in the morning classes before, like my morning classes are at 6:30 in the morning, and before I get there at 6:30, he's already on the mat with a couple of the other guys, and he has Bibles open up, and they're like reading Psalms or they're reading Proverbs or something like that, just doing a little study. I don't even know what version he uses, but he has like 5 of them on the bookshelf.
No, that's a great. I
yeah.
love that. That's a great culture.
And that was his idea. He asked me, "Hey, you mind if I do this?" Before I was like, "Yeah, go for it." Of course.
Listen, I know some of. I'm friends with some of the guys who are training at you. Unfortunately, I live an hour and 20 minutes away, even though this guy's right down the road in Fairlawn. But yeah, okay, you're right. You're right. I'm not going to argue, but you can see the change in those guys.
Yeah. Oh,
You can absolutely see the
absolutely.
change
Oh
in
my
those
goodness.
guys.
Yeah.
And the
100%.
kids.
Yeah. And the
I see their kids. Their kids are in the class. I
Yeah.
mean, you can see how it's affecting their personality, their confidence.
Man, their marriages. You know,
Yeah.
like I'm friends with these people. You know, and we're close to their family, and we do birthdays and stuff together, right? And so I've seen the impact that it's had on like their lives. You know, actually, the guy you were hanging out with this weekend, I don't know if he told you the story. He's lost like 50, 60 pounds.
Yeah.
His wife has lost like 40 pounds since they started training. I mean, he'll tell you he saved his life.
Yeah.
You know, he was in a depressive episode in his life, and now they train jiu-jitsu they're there every day.
Are they really?
Every day. Their kid is there every class. They're both there. They train together every day.
Oh, that's awesome.
And it's just, man, it's become, and that's commonplace.
Yeah.
That's usually what happens when somebody trains and sticks with jiu-jitsu. My brother, and we talked about my brother way early on when I telling the story how I started jiu-jitsu. He was watching kung fu movies, right? Mm-hmm. I started training. We watched these fights together. We loved jiu-jitsu. We loved MMA, but I was the only one who jumped in and started training. He's a musician. You've heard some of his stuff.
Yeah.
And so he was doing that thing. He just never trained. Bro, you got to train, you know. Never did it.
Not once.
Well, until last year, about a year and a half ago.
Get out of here.
Well, man, has it been? I think September of this year will be his 2-year mark. And so a year and a half ago, I hit him up again. I was like, bro, when are you going to start training? You know? And I actually found a Henzo Gracie that opened up in his part of New York City, on the Upper West Side. I sent him the website. I was like, bro, just fill out the form, just contact them. You know? He did. I just caught him at the good time.
Uh-huh.
They emailed him back. They said, hey, what do you want to see? He set up a trial class for that Sunday. Man, when I tell you that he hasn't looked back, he has dove
way,
all the
dude.
way. He's a blue belt. He's a blue belt in jiu-jitsu now. You got to follow his Instagram page. I'll send you his Instagram page.
Send me his
Yeah.
Instagram.
That's all, man. That's all he does. He posts stories now of jiu-jitsu every night.
He lost a
on the
lot of
mat.
weight.
He lost a lot of weight. He feels great. He's in love with it. He does like 2-3 classes a night.
It
He just
took
stays.
23 years, whatever it was.
Took 23 years. And he'll tell you that story. He's funny. When he got promoted, he was telling the professor,
Your
he's like,
brother's
man,
a
my
funny
brother.
dude.
Yeah. You
So
gotta
what's
hang out with him.
what's the plans for the future? What's the 5-year plan and what's the 20-year plan?
Excuse me.
10-year plan I don't care about.
5-year plan, I would say, is the expansion.
The expansion?
Within 5 years, especially now that I'm at 100, get that first expansion out of the way. get more mat space. Without more mat space, I'm reaching my capacity, especially for the kids class. The kids classes, and you've been there. You've seen it's not the biggest mat space in the world.
Yeah.
So I'd like to at least double that space. If I can at least double that space,
get some
give
locker
the classes
rooms,
more breathing room, make a little empty space so that people can feel like they can still come. Like you hit a capacity, guys will come in and parents will come in and say, "Oh, this is kind of too packed, too hectic," so they won't even sign up. So I have to expand. So I would say that's my 5-year goal. 10 years, I have to look back at my business plan, exactly how I articulated the plan. But after 10 years, hopefully I'm ready for another expansion. Like even that space, even doubling the size right now is not going to be huge. Yeah, I would like to maybe own my own standalone little gym or little building.
That would be
Eventually,
awesome.
I'd like to buy a building that I can move it, because that's a long-term investment, especially for a business owner like that.
That's the way to do it, though.
Why would I rent for the life of the business? If I could buy a piece of property that I can run my own business out of, that's the ultimate goal business-wise.
Let's just put a massive shed on your front lawn.
I know. Listen, that's all it takes, a pole barn or a warehouse or something like that,
Just pour
Isn't there one across the street from you?
Yeah, I know.
Isn't that
I've had all those warehouses and stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's a CrossFit gym in a warehouse right now.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
You
saw
got
the
to boot those
sign.
CrossFit dudes out of there.
One of our good friends, our mutual friends, he helped me build the spot out. He's a contractor. Posted the pictures of the whole build out process.
He's an unstoppable animal.
Dude, you
got to bottle up that guy's energy and sell that in the front.
I don't even know. I couldn't even tell you, bro. So recently, after about a year, there was a wall in the place. I don't know if you remember this. When we knocked down that wall that night.
Yeah.
And he's just, man, like you said, he's a different kind of guy, you know? Like most guys would be like, okay, let's block out a couple days.
Right.
Maybe you might have to close for a night.
He goes, I'll come over after dinner.
Yeah, no, I'll come over after your last class, after your last striking class that ends at 9 o'clock, at 9 p.m. I'll come at 9 p.m. and we'll start it. We'll get it done by the morning.
He'll work all
what
night
time's
long.
your morning class?
Yeah.
He'll work all night long and then go to work the next day.
No drugs?
We didn't get out of there.
No.
No, yeah, his own high on life.
Yeah.
I mean, a little, but
That doesn't help that, though.
That's
Bring
Bobby.
it out.
I mean, we didn't get out of there till 9:30 the next morning.
Yeah.
all night, tearing down this wall and then adding a couple more mats.
He's like, all right, you're ready to open.
That's
it.
Bobby.
Yeah.
Bobby does
Yeah.
the same thing.
Yeah.
Listen, man, thanks for coming on.
Yeah.
I know.
Yeah,
I
thank you for
canceled
having
on
me.
you a couple times because the winter's been crazy, but I appreciate you coming on.
What's she gonna do?
Yeah, I know. Your wife busted my chops this weekend, so I was like, okay, we got to solidify and get him on.
Yeah, you kind of deserved it, you know.
So tell people where they can find you online. What's the website?
CrucibleJiu-Jitsu.com. Jiu-Jitsu is JIUJITSU.
It's not JEU, JEW, JEWTSU.
That's funny. Somebody just posted something like that. I saw some. But anyway,
Not on purpose?
No, on purpose. 'Cause they had a little get together of.
Okay, I gotcha. How about on Instagram?
CrucibleJiu-Jitsu.com, Instagram, Crucible
Same
Jiu-Jitsu,
thing?
Crucible on Instagram, on Facebook. I do have a YouTube channel. I'm not good at posting on it.
It's not easy.
Yeah.
It's really not. I got to show you that buffer, that mass
Yeah.
social media disperser.
But I do have some like technique videos. I've done some kind of like instructional technique. I'm trying to put content really for my students, but
Yeah.
also putting a little bit out there on YouTube so people kind of get the vibe. That's all Crucible Jiu-Jitsu on YouTube.
You'll get customers from that 100%.
I know.
I put
I
on
know.
how-to
That's why I need to do
boilers.
that more.
Remember the how-to boiler videos I used to put
I
up?
remember that. Yeah.
Still
I
get
had
calls
people.
from those.
I had people call from Chicago, from New Hampshire, to us to come up and do
No, I know
boilers.
it's a big thing. You go on YouTube. I mean, on YouTube, there's a bunch of everybody's teaching techniques, you
Yeah.
know, and that's really one of the main reasons why, right? You put your academy name on there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have like an online presence, so when people see you and they come to your academy, it creates like a
Well,
familiarity.
dude, that's just why I do this whole thing just
Right,
so I can
right.
have my logo on it.
Right. And then people see you like, oh, you're
Yeah,
the guy from the
that's
pod.
it.
Yep.
Jolly, Paul Bunyan looking guy.
All right, man. Thanks for coming on. I
Of course,
appreciate
bro.
it.
Thanks for having me.
Guys, thanks for watching Plum Bums. Want to remind you that this show is sponsored by the New Jersey State League of Master Plumbers. Charity donations, scholarships, lobbying. They look out for small business owners. They look out for contractors. Join your local association. It's very important. A lot of younger guys are not doing that. We need that to continue because they're get together, have a voice, make a difference. New Jersey State League of Master Plumbers, thank you so much. We also want to let you know that this show is sponsored by Jigsaw PMR, jigsawpmr.com, your solution to property maintenance restoration, mold, fire, water, sewer. They'll come in, they'll take care, soup to nuts, best contractor we got, the Otto Catatius over there. And folks, if you're interested in being on the show, quartzplumbing.com. Click the podcast link, scroll down to the application, fill that out, we'll get you on. Anyone who's a small business owner, entrepreneur, we'd love to have you on. It's basically one long commercial. And also, please remember to like, share, subscribe, share the reels, share the podcast, tell people to watch. Excellent local show. We're trying to put a spotlight on all local business owners and stuff like that. And folks, thanks again for watching, and we will see you here next time.